I'm General Mark Milley, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and I've overseen America's most classified military operations for 4 decades. But nothing prepared me for what our deep ice drilling team discovered 2,847 feet beneath the Antarctic ice sheet in October 2022. What we found wasn't just a natural cavity. It was a fully operational military facility that had been hidden from the world for over 30 years. And it wasn't built by Americans. The discovery that would rewrite everything we knew about Antarctic operations began with what appeared to be a routine climate research mission in September 2022. Our National Science Foundation team was conducting deep ice core sampling near the Ross Ice Shelf as part of a legitimate climate change study. What they found at that depth changed the entire strategic landscape of global military competition and revealed that the coldest continent on Earth had become the hottest theater of international espionage. Dr. Sarah Chen, our lead glaciologist, was the first to notice the anomalies. At 2,847 feet beneath the surface, her deep ice drilling equipment encountered what she initially described as unusual density variations in the ice core samples. The ice at that depth was older than any natural formation should have been, and more importantly, it contained trace elements that didn't belong in Antarctic ice: titanium alloys, synthetic polymers, and electromagnetic signatures that suggested artificial construction. The initial report that reached my desk on October 3, 2022, was classified at the highest levels. Dr. Chen's team had discovered a massive hollow space beneath the ice, approximately 300 meters long and 150 meters wide. Ground-penetrating radar revealed geometric patterns that were clearly artificial: right angles, parallel walls, and structural elements that could only have been built by advanced engineering. This wasn't a natural ice cave or geological formation. It was a man-made facility that had been deliberately concealed beneath Antarctic ice. President Biden called an emergency national security council meeting on October 5th. The briefing room had never felt more surreal as I explained to America's top leadership that we had discovered what appeared to be a secret military installation in Antarctica, operated by an unknown nation, in direct violation of the Antarctic Treaty of 1959. The treaty explicitly prohibits military activities on the continent, yet here was evidence of a sophisticated facility that had been operating undetected for decades. General Milley, the president said, leaning forward in his chair, "I need to understand what we're dealing with. Who built this facility? How long has it been operational? And what are they doing down there?" The questions were straightforward, but the implications were staggering. If another nation had been secretly militarizing Antarctica for 30 years, the entire balance of global power had been operating under false assumptions. The initial intelligence assessment took 3 weeks and required resources from every branch of the intelligence community. Satellite imagery analysis revealed that the facility had been accessed through a series of ice tunnels that connected to surface installations disguised as research stations. The tunnels were so sophisticated that they had remained invisible to overhead surveillance for decades, camouflaged by natural ice formations and careful thermal management. Our first breakthrough came from signals intelligence. The facility was generating electromagnetic emissions that our satellites had been detecting for years, but attributing to natural atmospheric phenomena. When NSA analysts re-examined decades of electronic surveillance data, with the knowledge that an artificial facility existed beneath the ice, they discovered a pattern of encrypted communications that had been hiding in plain sight. The communication analysis revealed the shocking truth. The facility was operated by a joint coalition of nations, including Russia, China, and Iran, working together on projects that violated not just the Antarctic Treaty, but fundamental principles of international law. They had been conducting military research, weapons testing, and strategic planning from the most remote location on Earth, protected by thousands of feet of ice and the assumption that Antarctica was militarily neutral. By November 2022, our intelligence picture became clearer. and more disturbing. The Antarctic facility, codenamed Polar Star by its operators, had been active since 1991. It had been constructed during the chaos following the Soviet Union's collapse, when international monitoring of Antarctic activities was at its weakest. Russian nuclear submarines had transported construction materials and personnel through underwater access points beneath the ice shelf, creating a hidden base that existed completely outside international oversight. The facility's capabilities exceeded our worst-case scenarios. Intelligence indicated that Polar Star housed advanced weapons research laboratories, long-range missile testing facilities, and strategic command centers capable of coordinating military operations across the southern hemisphere. Most alarmingly, the base appeared to be conducting experiments with nuclear-powered ice-boring equipment that could potentially destabilize entire ice shelves, creating massive sea level changes that could be weaponized against coastal nations. The geopolitical implications were staggering. If Russia, China, and Iran had been secretly militarizing Antarctica for 3 decades, they had gained strategic advantages that fundamentally altered global military balance. The facility's location gave them unprecedented surveillance capabilities over shipping lanes, military movements, and communications traffic throughout the southern hemisphere. They had essentially established a hidden military presence that violated every assumption underlying international security arrangements. President Biden authorized Operation Ice Fortress on November 20, 2022, a covert intelligence mission to determine the full extent of the Antarctic facility and develop options for responding to this unprecedented violation of international law. The operation would require the most sophisticated cold weather intelligence capabilities in American military history, conducted in an environment where a single mistake could trigger international conflict or environmental catastrophe. The mission planning required capabilities that existed nowhere. In the U.S. military, we needed personnel who could operate in extreme cold conditions, remain undetected on ice surfaces, and penetrate hardened underground facilities while maintaining plausible deniability. The team assembled for Ice Fortress included Navy SEALs with Arctic warfare training, CIA technical specialists, and National Reconnaissance Office analysts capable of interpreting the most advanced surveillance data. Commander Jake Morrison, a Navy SEAL with extensive cold weather operations experience, was selected to lead the ground reconnaissance team. Morrison had conducted covert operations in both Arctic and Antarctic conditions, understood the unique challenges of polar warfare, and possessed the technical skills necessary to assess advanced military installations. His psychological profile showed the mental resilience required for extended operations in the world's most isolated environment. The infiltration plan required months of preparation and cover story development. Morrison's team would pose as a Joint National Science Foundation and Department of Energy Research expedition, studying the effects of climate change on Antarctic ice stability. Their legitimate scientific credentials were so thoroughly established that they actually conducted real climate research while gathering intelligence on the hidden military facility. The technical challenges were unprecedented. Traditional surveillance equipment failed in Antarctic conditions. Communication systems were disrupted by polar electromagnetic phenomena, and navigation relied on systems that had never been tested in such extreme environments. Our technical teams developed specialized equipment that could function at temperatures below -40 degrees Fahrenheit while maintaining the electronic signatures of legitimate scientific instruments. By February 2023, Morrison's team had successfully infiltrated Antarctica and established their cover operation near the Ross Ice Shelf. Their legitimate climate research provided perfect justification for deep ice drilling and subsurface exploration activities. Over 6 weeks, they mapped the exact location and dimensions of the hidden facility while maintaining their scientific cover story. The intelligence they gathered was both fascinating and terrifying. The Polar Star facility was far more extensive than satellite imagery had indicated. It consisted of multiple levels extending nearly 500 feet beneath the ice surface, with sophisticated life support systems, advanced communication arrays, and what appeared to be testing facilities for weapons, systems that we couldn't immediately identify. Most concerning was evidence of nuclear materials within the facility. Radiation signatures detected by Morrison's team indicated that Polar Star housed nuclear reactors, nuclear weapons, or both. The presence of nuclear materials in Antarctica violated multiple international treaties and created the possibility of environmental catastrophe if the facility's containment systems failed or were compromised. I'm Genera. The breakthrough discovery came on March 15, 2023, when Morrison's team successfully penetrated the facility's outer perimeter through an ice tunnel that connected to the surface, using fiber optic cameras inserted through natural ice fissures. They obtained the first visual confirmation of the facility's interior, a sophisticated military installation with personnel from multiple nations, working on projects that clearly violated the Antarctic Treaty. The visual intelligence was conclusive. Russian, Chinese, and Iranian military personnel were operating advanced equipment within a facility that officially didn't exist. The installation included missile testing chambers, nuclear research laboratories, and strategic planning centers, equipped with global communication systems. Polar Star wasn't just a violation of international law. It was a hidden military base capable of projecting power across the entire southern hemisphere. The most shocking discovery was evidence of advanced propulsion systems that appeared to be based on technology we didn't recognize. Morrison's team documented testing chambers containing what appeared to be experimental aircraft or spacecraft using propulsion, methods that defied conventional understanding of physics. The implications were staggering. Either our adversaries had developed revolutionary technology, or they had access to capabilities that originated from non-terrestrial sources. President Biden's reaction to the Morrison team's intelligence was immediate and decisive. On March 20, 2023, he authorized the expansion of Operation Ice Fortress to include preparation for potential military action against the Antarctic facility. The decision represented a fundamental shift in how America viewed polar regions, from scientific preserve to potential battleground, where the next global conflict might begin. The military planning for potential Antarctic operations presented challenges that had never been addressed in modern warfare. Combat operations in temperatures below -40 degrees Fahrenheit at altitudes above 9,000 feet, on unstable ice surfaces, with no possibility of immediate reinforcement or evacuation, required capabilities that existed nowhere in the U.S. military. We were essentially planning for warfare on another planet. The diplomatic implications were equally complex. Confronting Russia, China, and Iran about their Antarctic facility would require acknowledging that we had discovered it through our own covert intelligence operations. Any public revelation would expose American surveillance capabilities, while triggering international crises that could escalate to military conflict. Yet allowing the facility to continue operating meant accepting a massive violation of international law that gave our adversaries unprecedented strategic advantages. The environmental considerations added another layer of complexity. Military action against an underground facility containing nuclear materials, located beneath thousands of feet of ice, could trigger environmental catastrophes affecting global sea levels and climate patterns. The cure could be worse than the disease, creating humanitarian disasters that would affect every nation on Earth. Intelligence analysis revealed that Polar Star was connected to a network of similar facilities throughout Antarctica. Satellite re-examination identified at least 6 other locations where similar thermal and electromagnetic signatures suggested hidden installations. The Antarctic continent, supposedly dedicated to peaceful scientific research, had become a secret military theater where multiple nations were conducting prohibited activities. The strategic assessment concluded that the Antarctic facilities represented the most significant intelligence failure in modern American history. For 30 years, hostile nations had been developing military capabilities in the world's most remote location, protected by international law that prohibited the very intelligence gathering necessary to detect their activities. They had exploited the Antarctic Treaty's peaceful provisions to conduct military activities that violated the treaty's fundamental principles. By April 2023, Morrison's team had gathered sufficient intelligence to confirm the worst-case scenario. Polar Star was not just a research facility but an active military base capable of supporting combat operations, nuclear weapons deployment, and strategic command functions. The facility's isolation and concealment made it virtually invulnerable to conventional military attack while providing its operators with capabilities that could affect global military balance. The decision to confront the Antarctic facility operators came after weeks of National Security Council deliberations. President Biden ultimately chose a diplomatic approach that would expose the violations while minimizing the risk of military escalation. On May 15, 2023, the United States formally notified the Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meeting that American research activities had discovered evidence of military activities that violated treaty provisions. The international response was swift and predictable. Russia denied any military activities in Antarctica, claiming that all their installations were legitimate research facilities. China accused the United States of violating Antarctic treaty provisions through unauthorized intelligence gathering. Iran declared that their Antarctic research was purely scientific and that American allegations were propaganda designed to militarize the polar regions. The stalemate that followed exposed fundamental weaknesses in international law enforcement mechanisms. The Antarctic Treaty contained no provisions for addressing violations, no enforcement mechanisms, and no penalties for non-compliance. Nations that had spent decades building secret military facilities could simply deny their existence while continuing their prohibited activities. The American response evolved into a long-term strategy of enhanced Antarctic monitoring combined with the development of our own polar military capabilities. If our adversaries were going to militarize Antarctica in violation of international law, America needed the capabilities to detect, monitor, and if necessary, counter their activities. The age of Antarctic innocence was over. The establishment of enhanced American Antarctic capabilities required congressional authorization and funding that couldn't be publicly acknowledged. Black budget allocations funded the development of polar warfare capabilities, cold weather intelligence systems, and strategic response options for dealing with hostile Antarctic activities. America was quietly preparing for the possibility that the next global conflict might begin in the world's most remote location. Morrison's team was extracted from Antarctica in June 2023 after completing the most successful intelligence gathering operation in polar history. Their courage and professional competence under impossible conditions had revealed threats that could affect global security for decades. They had operated in an environment where temperatures could kill in minutes, where communication was unreliable, and where discovery could trigger international incidents. The intelligence revolution that followed the Antarctic discoveries changed how America approached polar regions and international treaty monitoring. New satellite systems were deployed to monitor Antarctic activities with unprecedented resolution. Signals intelligence capabilities were enhanced to detect communications from hidden facilities. Most importantly, America developed the military capabilities necessary to operate in polar environments. If diplomatic solutions failed, the long-term implications of the Antarctic discoveries continue to unfold. The revelation that hostile nations had been secretly militarizing the polar regions for decades changed fundamental assumptions about global security. International law that assumed good faith compliance had been systematically violated by nations that exploited peaceful treaties to conduct prohibited military activities. The environmental monitoring that followed the Antarctic discoveries revealed that climate change was accelerating the exposure of previously hidden facilities. Rising temperatures and shifting ice patterns were making concealed installations more visible to satellite surveillance, while creating new opportunities for both military and scientific activities in polar regions. The psychological impact on American military and intelligence personnel was significant, learning that adversaries had been operating secret facilities for decades, while American intelligence had been completely unaware, created a crisis of confidence that required comprehensive review of monitoring capabilities and analytical assumptions. The Antarctic discoveries represented both an intelligence failure and an intelligence triumph. Failure to detect the facilities for 30 years, but triumph in ultimately discovering and assessing them. Today, the Antarctic facilities continue to operate, while diplomatic efforts to address treaty violations proceed through international channels that have no enforcement mechanisms. The hidden military installations remain active, their capabilities continue to expand, and their operators continue to deny their existence. Antarctica has become a secret battleground where the next global conflict might begin beneath thousands of feet of ice. The men and women who discovered and investigated the Antarctic facilities will never receive public recognition for their service. Their achievements remain classified, their courage unacknowledged, their sacrifices invisible to the American people they protected. They proved that even in the world's most remote location, American military and intelligence capabilities could uncover threats that hostile nations believed they had successfully concealed. The Antarctic discoveries taught us that international law without enforcement mechanisms becomes an invitation for violation by nations willing to exploit peaceful treaties for military advantage. The coldest continent on Earth had become a hidden theater of global competition, where the stakes were nothing less than the balance of power between democracy and authoritarianism. As I reflect on the discovery that changed our understanding of polar security, I'm reminded that threats to American national security can emerge from the most unexpected places. The Antarctic facilities represent the ultimate example of adversaries exploiting our assumptions, violating our trust, and using international law as cover for prohibited activities. The story of Operation Ice Fortress demonstrates that even in an age of satellite surveillance and global communications, determined adversaries can still achieve strategic surprise through patience, deception, and willingness to violate international agreements. The discovery of secret Antarctic facilities, 2,847 feet beneath the ice, proves that the next threat to global security might be hiding in the last place anyone thinks to look. This is my testimony to the dedicated professionals who revealed one of the most significant intelligence discoveries in modern history, who operated under impossible conditions to gather information that protects American security, and who continue to monitor threats that most Americans will never know exist. Their service in the world's most remote location exemplifies the commitment and courage required to defend freedom against adversaries who recognize no boundaries and respect no agreements.